oriented towards astronomy, what do you think are the reasons for us to be discussing rocket science today? Can anyone tell me what you imagine the speed of a rocket might be, like when it is injecting a satellite into orbit? Even if one thing fails, one small component fails, it's a disaster. You might know about Kalpana Chawla's. Why do we even go to space? That's the fundamental question. Why don't we use airplanes to put a satellite into orbit? We will just try and see what are the various parts of a rocket. Then building a satellite, this is just a very small portion. And then finally we come to the launching of a rocket. My name is Ankita Hudedgaddi. I'm a former scientist engineer from ISRO. I used to work at the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Trivandrum. To give you a brief idea of, okay, before I come to this, why does a rocket face so much heating? Like, why does the heat shield required? Why is it required for a satellite? Where is the heating coming from? Friction. Friction due to the airflow around it. When your rocket is going at such high speeds, the air gets compressed to very small volumes. You must have observed this while filling your bicycle tires, right? You keep pumping it. You keep pumping the cycle pump. It warms up. It heats up, right? If you touch it, it's warm to the touch. Something similar happens here. When you're compressing the air in such short volumes at such high speeds, a lot of energy, that is a kinetic energy, for those who are well versed, kinetic energy of the air gets converted to thermal energy. Okay? So at the tip, so this is just a simulation. Don't be bothered too much by it. I will just explain what it is. It is a simulation, a flow simulation around just the nose cone of a rocket. If we are considering the temperature of the air around the rocket, at the very tip, temperatures can be as high as 469 Kelvin. That is, you would subtract 273 from it, and you get temperatures of around 200 plus at just a Mach number. That is a speed of twice the speed of sound. Even at very low speeds, you're having very high temperatures at the nose tip. So it is natural. If you just look at this figure, this is a color gradation. This basically tells you wherever it is red has higher temperatures. As it goes backwards, turns from green to blue, temperatures become lower. Looking at this, you can just guess that if we are to place any thermal tiles or we are to place any thermal insulation, maximum amount should be at the tip, because the temperatures of the flow are going to be the highest over here. Okay, this is just an aside fact. If you're not very comfortable with this, we can move on. It won't affect the rest of the talk. Next is coming to engines and propellant. You spoke about car engines, right? So what kind of engines are those? Okay, fine. You can classify all of them as like internal combustion engines of some sort. Now there are also new engines which are coming, you know, hydrogen engines, and also there are other engines like electric. They're not engines, they are batteries, right? You're storing that energy and you're using it. So basically, in a rocket, you have multiple different kinds of engines. When your rocket is using something called chemical propulsion, you have solid propulsion and liquid propulsion. We discussed these solid motors and the liquid engines earlier. Under liquid propulsion, you have three more categories. First is when the propellant is earth storable. That is, you can store it at regular earth temperatures. Second is when the propellant is semi-cryogenic. When I say semi-cryogenic, it means that the fuel part can be stored at room temperature, at earth temperatures. The oxidizer part has to be stored as liquid oxygen, right? And for oxygen, at room temperature, it is in gaseous form. If it has to be stored in liquid form, it has to be at very low temperatures. So nearly minus 180 degrees Celsius, this oxygen is stored. It is called semi-cryogenic because just one of the components is stored at much lower temperatures, sub-zero temperatures. Then of course you have the cryogenic engine. You have LH2 and LOX as the propellant. Can anyone tell me what is the product of burning hydrogen and oxygen? Water vapor. Perfect. You get water vapor. You have H2O as the formula for water. H2 plus O2 will give you H2O. So the only the only thing that comes out of engines like this, which are carrying this propellant, is water vapor. This is something which is being advocated even in like vehicles, right? Hydrogen-based vehicles. That's because of the point that I mentioned earlier. Certain stages and certain propellants have particular properties which enable them to give higher thrust. At the point of liftoff, you need very high thrust. Solid rocket motors are much more well suited to that. But it does not mean that solid rockets, the solid motors are the only option that we have. We know for a fact that Falcon 9 uses a semi-cryogenic engine. It uses a combination of kerosene and O2. These are SpaceX rockets. They use kerosene plus O2. Even these, if you design them appropriately enough, they are capable of giving you high enough thrust at liftoff. ISRO, in fact, is trying something like that out. Something in development is the heavy lift launch vehicle, where even we are planning, like all our vehicles, actually all our rockets that we have are using solid propellant at the initial first stage. In the heavy lift launch vehicle, which is just in conceptual stages as of now, semi-cryogenic fuel is being tried out. So this is the cross section of a solid rocket motor which is placed. This is the solid propellant. There'll be a small igniter. Like you said, a spark plug plays that role, right? There'll be a small igniter in a solid rocket motor. Once a signal is sent over here to ignite this, all of this starts burning in a radial fashion. And the propellant which is burnt here comes out through the nozzle. Why is the nozzle shaped like this?
Compress it and push it in more pressure.
Exactly. When you're saying pressure, you basically mean it has to be at a higher velocity. Velocity or exit pressure are both good enough terms. You're basically, the shape of the nozzle is like this in order to collect all of the propellant which is flowing out of here, the burnt propellant, compress it, release it at a desired pressure. Because we had seen in that Newton's third law, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Greater the pressure, greater the mass that you release it at, greater the force that will push this entire system forward. Okay? Now, coming to a liquid rocket, you have two fuel tanks. One of the fuels is stored over here, oxidizer is stored in this tank. Then some of these are pressure fed, some can be pump fed. There are pumps which basically take this fuel from here and take it to the combustion chamber. In the combustion chamber, this is burnt. Again, like it happened here, it comes out through the nozzle at a particular exit pressure and an exit velocity. That is how a liquid engine works. This is a small scaled model of the Vikas engine, which is used in almost, I think, all of ISRO's rockets, except maybe SSLV. Here again, you have these outlets like you saw, right? For the fuel to come into the combustion chamber, you have these two pipes which are connected to the fuel tanks, comes into the combustion chamber. This is the combustion chamber. You have the nozzle and it flows out from here. This is a scaled model. Now, if you want a feel of the actual scale, this is the actual scale. You see these humans here? They're so tiny in front of this. The engine is huge. You go and stand in front of these vehicles, you have to crane your neck. You'll start getting neck pain if you're there for a long enough duration. This is the Vikas engine which is assembled. This entire cylindrical portion that you're seeing is space for tanks. The fuel tank and the oxidizer tank that we saw in the earlier slide are assembled here. Now, these are points that I've already mentioned before. Every stage has a particular speciality. It is capable of delivering a particular thrust. That is why we have different stages at different phases of the rocket part. Now, if you have seen launches by SpaceX, has anybody seen it? Okay, some of you have seen it. You'll often see that there is, something like a cloud-like thing, some vapor-like thing that is coming out from this. Can anybody guess what that is? Nitrogen is used for cooling, yes. What else could it be? In SpaceX, both the stages are semi-cryogenic stages. You have liquid oxygen, which is stored in these stages. Liquid oxygen has to be stored at a temperature of minus 180 degrees, roughly. If you're storing it at that temperature, you're exposing it to something which is like 25 degrees outside it. naturally some of the liquid oxygen is going to evaporate. If the surface layer of liquid oxygen inside the tank starts to evaporate, it will build up the pressure in the tank, right? The moment it turns from liquid to gas, it starts building pressure in the tank. So it has to be vented out. The excess liquid oxygen has to be vented out, whatever's in gaseous form. That is being vented out in a lot of these cases. And also, in order to maintain it at such low temperatures, like you mentioned, liquid nitrogen is often used for cooling. You pass it around the casings, you pass it around the tanks on the exterior surface, you maintain it at very low temperatures, so as to minimize the amount of evaporation that is happening from the liquid oxygen to a gaseous form. This is just something for you to notice the next time that you see a launch by SpaceX. There is one more point that you need to pay attention to, is in our liquid engine, we have one nozzle. In some other rockets, for example, this is a Falcon rocket, you have, I think, nine nozzles here. This is something that they are doing so that they are able to generate high amounts of thrust. What is better than one engine? 9 engines, right? You're able to generate much higher thrust, you're able to burn a lot more fuel, you're able to compress and push out a lot more propellant than you would have done with just one engine. There are many challenges associated with technology like this, because the moment the flow comes out from these nozzles, it starts interacting with the flow coming out from the other nozzles. So it's not very easy to make sure that all of them are coordinated. Okay? All of them, it's a very challenging task to make sure that all of them are coordinated in order to produce the thrust that we require. ISRO also has one other higher stage in which we have 2 nozzles, but this is something that we are looking at in the future. If we are able to cluster these engines together, then it will be very easy for us to use, like you said, liquid engines at the bottom stage, because it will be able to generate a lot more thrust in the first stage. Coming to steering, you have a steering wheel in a car to help you change direction on a road. In a rocket, can you have something like a steering wheel?
By changing the angle of the nozzle.
Yes. Exactly. That is a steering mechanism. There's something called thrust vectoring. It's called thrust vectoring, wherein basically the nozzle that is connected to the solid rocket motor, the nozzle, the entire engine which is connected to the whole, liquid engine, is gimbaled. By gimbal, I mean it is moved around in the requisite direction. Here you see, if the nozzle is moved in this direction, you are getting a counter force in this direction, right? The rocket is moving in this direction. Similarly here, nozzle is moved this way, the rocket is moved in this direction. This is a representation of thrust vectoring. This is not the only mechanism. There are many other mechanisms as well. Something like, there's something called secondary injection, which is used, wherein you don't move the nozzle itself, you inject a flow into it. So the direction of the flow that is coming out is going to change. There are many other different variants are used. This is just an example, representative purpose. We can move on to the next slide. Now, just before we do that, there are many other systems that we need to consider. We have touched upon 3 systems. What was the first system? Payload. Second, payload fairing. Then engines and propellant. Then steering. There are many other systems that we also need to pay attention to. First one is onboard computer. What role do you think an onboard computer would play in a launch vehicle or in a rocket? Coordination. It needs to give signal. There are many sensors on the, excuse me for a moment. Yes, coordination is one of them. Something else that it does, there are many sensors which will tell you exactly when the fuel burning in a particular stage is over. This sensor information has to go to some computer which is located on the rocket. This sensor information goes to that particular computer. The computer gets to know it is time for stage separation. That is when it is able to command that the stage has to be separated. Okay? So there are many other functions which are performed by onboard computer. This is one of them. Then we have the telemetry and telecommunication antennas which are located. If we have to track in which direction a rocket is going, you might have seen like any kind of video coverage is very limited. After a particular point, you can't even see where the rocket is going. All of the communication has to happen through antennas. There are many tracking stations which are located at different points on the earth. We have many contracts with tracking stations which are located in different countries so that these tracking stations are able to track in which direction the rocket is going. That's the role of these antennas. Then, of course, we have other thermal protection systems, not only the heat shield. You'll need insulation on the entirety of the rocket. Other thermal protection systems are there. Then you have the separation systems. Basically, they are small explosives. Some small explosion happens. All the bolts, all the rivets which are holding two stages together will melt and break open, and the stage gets separated. Okay, separation systems are there. Now, a brief comparison. We are almost towards the end. I think in about 5 more slides will be done. Rockets of the world, this is a basic comparison. You have the GSLV Mark III rocket. You can see that it is about 43 to 45 meters tall. You have the Falcon 9, which is by SpaceX. It is quite tall. It is over 70 meters tall. And then you have a comparison of other things. This is this is a space shuttle. What was the space shuttle used for? Exactly. Space shuttle was used to carry humans, and now it's a retired vehicle. It was used by NASA a long time ago. If we make a brief comparison of our GSLV Mark III rocket, which is ISRO's rocket, and Falcon 9, which is SpaceX, we see that they are roughly the same mass, only about 1 lakh kg difference. But their payload capacity is vastly different. To a low Earth orbit, that is something at a lower height, our GSLV Mark III rocket is able to take 10,000 kgs worth of payload. That is, if a satellite is 10,000 kgs, or if say like 10 satellites together are 10,000 kgs, we are able to take them to a low Earth orbit. In order to if we have to take a satellite much farther, then we need to expend more energy, correct? So the capacity to carry more weight decreases. If we have to take it to a geostationary transfer orbit, which is a starting point for that 36,000 kilometers that I told you, the equatorial orbit, we are able to carry only about 4,000 kgs worth of payload. Falcon 9, on the other hand, as opposed to our 10,000 kg, it can carry nearly 22,000. As opposed to 4,000, it can carry nearly 8,000. Almost double the capacity, even though the mass is much lesser. Why is that happening? Stages. That is why, and that is where you understand the importance of stages. We have a solid, liquid, and cryo stage. They just have 2 semi-cryo stages. So if stages are designed efficiently, if stages are designed to achieve a specific purpose, we are able to gain a much higher capacity of our rocket. That's why the rocket is more powerful than the rocket that we have. These are rockets of India. PSLV is something that all of you might be well versed with. PSLV basically took the Aditya L1 to orbit. GSLV Mark II is kind of an intermediary between PSLV and GSLV Mark III. GSLV Mark III is the vehicle that we have been seeing earlier. This is what took Chandrayaan to orbit. Then we have SSLV, which somebody had mentioned. This is a small satellite launch vehicle intended to carry smaller satellites to space. Then this is the HRLV. You notice this peculiar shape on top. What could this be? This is the crew module. When we are planning on carrying humans to space, we are going to use the same GSLV Mark III rocket, take out the top part, that is a payload fairing, and fix a crew module to it. On top of that, we are going to fix another system known as the crew escape system. So it is called the HRLV. HRLV stands for Human Rated Launch Vehicles. That is, this vehicle will be capable of carrying humans to space.
काय बरेलो बांगडो म्हाका मायन दिलेलो कोण रे मेल्यान त्याचो दोळो फोडिल्लो आयलो गो कचरोवालो आयलो आगो बेगीन कर तो कचरोवालो आयलो तूं आनी कितें गो मागीर म्हाज्या नांवान बोवाळ मारतले यो बेगीन यो
धरलो
कितें
आणि तो म्हजेर बेजार जाता म्हाका लज जाता. आणि आणि ह्या ओल्या कचऱ्यान प्लास्टीक पोती घालप.
अगो पण ओली जाता मग ती पळय पळय आटलान पळय.
शी 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 शी. केन्ना अक्कल येतली रे तुका. ही पळय, ही भाजयेची, ही नुस्त्याची आणि ही बाकीच्या सामानाची. पूर्ण तुका जाय ती प्लास्टिकूच. नागरिक म्हणून आमची किती जबाबदारी असा काय ना. एकटो सरकार कांयच करूंक शकना आणि कचऱ्याच्या बाबतीत तर नाच ना.
म्हणजे कितें करप तर आमी.
अरे कचरो कितलेशेच प्रकारचो असता. 7 ते 8 प्रकार. वखदांचो वेगळो कचरो, काचेचो वेगळो कचरो, इलेक्ट्रिकचो वेगळो कचरो. तरी सरकार दोनूच सांगता, वलो आणि सुको. आणि तरी तुझ्याकडे ते जायना. दारादारांनी कचरो व्हरपाक येऊन सुद्धा गटारांनी, रस्त्याच्या कुशीक कचऱ्याच्या ढिगारच मरे. आणि हो कचरो कोण करता? आमीच मरे. मागीर म्हाका सांग, हातून सरकार कितें करतलो?
सारकें तुजें, चुकता आमचेंच.
अरे सावंत सरकारान कचरो जाग्यार घालपाक कितलेशेच प्रकल्प उबे केल्यात. सालिगांव, कुणय, पिसुर्ल्या आणि हेर जाग्यार कितलेशेच नवे प्रकल्प नेटान चालू आसात. सरकार आपले काम आपले परीन पुराय जोर लावन करता. पूण गरज आसा आमी जबाबदार जावपाची. कितें?
नव्या दमाचे सेरतुतराचे हे आमचे सरकार. प्रमोद सावंताच्या खाला सपना जाता साकार. गोंयाचो फुल्लारे फुडार, खोशया सारे गोंयकार.
आता ओल्यान ओलो आणि सुक्यान सुको.
गोंयान उरलो ना कचऱ्याचो धोको. आता
भिवपाची गरज ना.
दरेक गोंयकाराचो आधार डॉक्टर प्रमोद सावंताचें गोंय सरकार.